The career world is like an ecological system. People occupy particular fields within which they must compete for resources and survival. The more people there are crowded into a space, the harder it becomes to thrive there. Working in such a field will tend to wear you out as you struggle to get attention, to play the political games, to win scarce resources for yourselves. You spend so much time at these games that you have little time left over for true mastery. You are seduced into such fields because you see others they are making a living treading the familiar path. You are not aware of how difficult such a life can be. The game you want to play is different, to instead find a niche in the ecology that you can dominate. It is never a simple process to find such a niche. It requires patience and particular strategy. In the beginning, you choose a field that roughly corresponds to your interests: medicine, electrical engineering. From there, you can go in on one of the two directions. The first is the Ramachandran path. From within your chosen field, you look for side paths that particularly attract you. When it is possible, you make a move into this narrower field. You continue this process until you eventually hit upon a totally unoccupied niche. The narrower, the better. In some ways, this niche corresponds to your uniqueness, much as Ramachandran's particular form of neurology corresponds to his own primal sense of feeling like an exception. The second is Matsuoka path. Once you have mastered your first field, robotics, you look for other subjects or skills that you can conquer neuroscience on your own time if necessary. You can now combine this added field of knowledge to the original one, perhaps creating a new field or at least making novel connections between them. You continue this process as long as you wish. In Matsuoka's case, she never stops expanding. Ultimately, you create a field that is uniquely your own. This second version fits in well with a culture where information is so widely available and in which connects ideas is a form of power. In either direction, you have found a niche that is not crowded with competitors. You have freedom to roam, to pursue particular questions that interest you. You set your own agenda and command the resources available to this niche, unburdened by overwhelming competition and politicking. You have time and space to bring to flower your life's task. Avoid the false path, the rebellion strategy. In 1760, at the age of 4, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart took up the piano under his father's instruction. It was Wolfgang who asked to start lessons at this precocious age. His sister, aged 7, had already started on the instrument. Perhaps it was partly out of sibling rivalry that he had taken such initiative, seeing the attention and love that his sister received for her playing and wanting it for himself. After the first few months of practice, his father, Leopold, a talented player, composer, and teacher himself, could see that Wolfgang was exceptional, most strange for his age, but the boy loved to practice. At night, his parents had to drag him away from the piano. He began to compose his own pieces at the age of 5. Soon, Leopold took this prodigy and his sister on the road to perform in all the capitals of Europe. Wolfgang dazzled the royal audiences for whom he performed. He played with assurance and could improvise all kinds of clever melodies. He was like a precious toy. The father was now earning a nice income for the family as more and more courts wanted to see the child genius in action. As the patriarch of the family, Leopold demanded total obedience from his children, even though it was now young Wolfgang who was essentially supporting them all. Wolfgang willingly submitted. He owed everything to his father, but as he entered adolescence, something else stayed within him. Was it playing the piano that he enjoyed, or simply attracting all of this attention? He felt confused. After so many years composing music, he was finally developing his own style, and yet his father insisted that he focus on writing the more conventional pieces that pleased the royal audiences and brought the family money. The city of Salzburg, where they lived, was provincial and bourgeois. In general, he yearned for something else, to be on his own. With each passing year, Wolfgang increasingly stifled. Finally, in 1777, the father allowed Wolfgang, now 21, to leave for Paris, accompanied by his mother. There he must try to gain a prominent position as a conductor so that he could continue supporting his family. But Wolfgang did not find Paris to his liking. The jobs he was offered seemed beneath his talents, and then his mother fell ill where there and then his mother fell ill while there and died on the way back home. The trip was a disaster in all possible ways. Wolfgang returned to Salzburg, chastened and prepared to submit to his father's will. He accepted a rather uninteresting position as the court organist, but he could not completely suppress his unease. He despaired of spending his life in this mediocre position, writing music to please these petty provincials. At one point, he wrote his father, I am a composer. I neither can nor ought to bury the talent for composition with which God in his goodness has so richly endowed me. Leopold reacted to these increasingly frequent complaints of his son with anger, reminding him of the debt he owed him for all of the training he had received and the expenses the father had incurred in their endless travels. Finally, in a flash, it came to Wolfgang. It was never really the piano that was his love, not even music per se. He did not enjoy performing before others like a puppet. It was composing that he was destined for. But more than that, he had an intense love for theater. He wanted to compose operas. That was his true voice. He would never realize this if he remained in Salzburg. It was his father who represented more than an obstacle. He was, in fact, ruining his life, his health, his confidence. It was not just about money. His father was actually jealous of his son's talents, and whether consciously or not, he was trying to stifle his progress. Wolfgang had to take a step, however painful, before it was too late. On a trip to Vienna in 1781, Wolfgang made the fateful decision to stay. He would never return to Salzburg. As if Wolfgang had broken some great taboo, his father could never forgive him for this. His son had abandoned the family. The rift between them would never be repaired. Feeling that he had lost so much time under his father's thumb, Wolfgang composed at a furious pace, his most famous operas and compositions pouring out of him as if he were possessed.